This guy cannot die. That is the key takeaway from this franchise. That is it. But no, so a while ago, somebody had told me, there were a few people actually that mentioned that they were talking about maybe possibly doing another movie. I talked about the 2009 remake. I thought it was just as good as the other Jason films, and I think it might be better than actually some of them. Now, as I always talk about with slasher and horror films in this show, I mean, this is obviously it's definitely in my top five, along with, Scream, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, according to Fangoria here, Blumhouse still wants to make a new Friday the 13th movie. Blumhouse's Ryan Turek, not really sure, and Jason Blum want to bring Jason Voorhees back to the big screen, but is that even possible? Yes, it's entirely possible. All the other movies were on the big screen, so this one could be too. This was according to Ryan Scott. He published this article here. It has been close to 15 years since we've had a new Friday the 13th movie in theaters, which in my humble slasher-loving opinion is just wholly unacceptable. Agreed. In fairness, much of that has to do with a lawsuit between original screenwriter Victor Miller and director Sean Cunningham. But with the Crystal Lake TV show in the works at Peacock, the tide finally appears to be turning. Now the folks at Blumhouse are once again making it known that they want to bring Jason Voorhees back to the big screen. Blumhouse's Ryan Turek recently spoke with the folks at Inverse in anticipation of the release of The Exorcist Believer, which marks the latest major franchise that the company has managed to get its hands on following the success of David Gordon Green's Halloween trilogy, which were also great. I'll do a review on those later. Turek explained that he and Blumhouse head honcho Jason Blum very much want to I'm sorry, I can't talk right now, want to be the ones to bring Friday the 13th back. If Turek has his way, it sounds like he wouldn't complicate matters too much either. Here's what he had to say about it. Jason Blum and I are definitely in agreement that Friday the 13th is the thing we would love to get our hands on. I really want to go back to the basics. You don't need too many ingredients for a Friday the 13th film. You need summer camp, you need campers, and you need Jason Voorhees in a mask. Yeah, pretty much. Listen, I've gone on the record saying Halloween is the ultimate slasher film for me. That is my favorite slasher film of all time. But Friday the 13th as a franchise is one that I just bow down to in both worlds. Like we do with Halloween, then be able to live at Crystal Lake for a while would be so incredible. This is far from the first time that Turek and or Blum have mentioned this franchise as a target, and as of now, there's no real indication that they've made any actual inquiries about it. That said, about a year ago, it looked like there might be some actual movement happening on a Friday the 13th movie before cold water was quickly poured on the situation. All of this to say, this all sounds like wishful thinking right now rather than something that might actually happen. Then again, with Brian Fuller doing Crystal Lake, there's no reason to think a new movie can't happen as well. Honestly, it makes it feel more likely that it has in a very long time. The only real issue might be the fear of competing projects, but given that the Halloween trilogy made nearly $500 million worldwide, even with both Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends going to Peacock on the same day they hit theaters, Blumhouse does feel like an obvious landing spot for Jason Voorhees. Money talks, and there is money to be made with a new Friday the 13th movie. Eventually one is going to happen. You can bet Jason Blum will be making phone calls when that time comes. The Exorcist Believer hits theaters on October 6th. And I saw that, and that was pretty good, and I'll give a review on that too. So, a couple takeaways from me with the Friday the 13th franchise is this movie makes me not want to go camping ever, especially near a lake. So let's just get that out the way. There's that. And as I stated before, Jason Voorhees cannot die. And he's right. It's a simple ingredient. Just campers, and a psycho undead serial killer with a hockey mask and a machete. That's really all it takes. Now, as far as what I would rate each of the movies, I would say that each of the movies gets a 10. I think Part 9 was Jason Goes to Hell. Part 10 was Jason X. So that means Part 8 was the Manhattan one. I would give that one maybe an 8 or a 9, 8.5, about that 8.5 to 9. Jason X to me was like, it was like Jason Voorhees meets Star Trek or Star Wars, because it took place in outer space. And if you watch the first movie and then skip the second to ninth movies and then watch that one, it seems like you're watching something totally different. But all us real Friday the 13th fans, I'm sure for a lot of fans, it may not bother them as much because it's still Jason Voorhees. Others gave it a low rating for, whatever other reasons. So, excuse me. So, and then also you had Freddy versus Jason that was real good. And there was, at one point, I think there was talks of a sequel to that, but that never came to play. So not really sure what happened there. But I actually said at first, I said, you know what? It has been a long time. I don't know if they're going to do another Jason movie. I feel like I don't know if they've given up on it, because the horror slasher franchise is, I mean, let's face it, it's probably the least, or one of the least popular genres that has ever existed. I mean, it's not going to beat a lot of drama films, especially not action thriller films, comedy films, maybe. But I'm looking forward to it. And to tell you the truth, I've never actually seen any of the Friday the 13th movies in theaters. I've seen them all either on DVD or streaming. But whenever they come to this one, I'll be there. I'll be there in theaters for it. So, I mean, what do you think? What do you think about the possibility or the idea of another Friday the 13th movie? You tell me. Stay tuned.